The Nerd Initiative presents the Comic Press Podcast.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Comic Press Podcast. My name is Jeremy. I'm your host, as always. And with me today is a guest that I got to meet at Cartoon Crossroads Columbus a couple of weeks ago. Picked up their book, Haloween Boy. That is what we've got them here to talk about today. Please welcome Dave Baker. How are you doing, my friend? Applause. I don't have the fancy sound effects, but we'll get there one day.
Yeah, the soundboard. You know you've really made it when you got a soundboard, you know.
Right, exactly. Yeah, we'll get there one day. We'll be all right.
Yeah, I have faith in you. Yeah.
So what's been going on since the convention, man? That was the last time I seen you.
Yeah, no, nothing much. Just, settling back in here in Los Angeles, working on the next book and, making comics, man. It's not a particularly glamorous thing. It just is what it is.
Well, hey, to me, it's pretty glamorous because without you guys making comics, I don't have anything to entertain myself with. So, but
Right, yeah.
the first thing we always like to do on the show is get the guest's nerd origin story, how you kind of became the comic book nerd that you are. Did it start with comic books? Did it start with manga or something unrelated to comic books and you kind of just fell into it? Or how did that all come about?
Yeah, so for me, it was Belgian, like Franco-Belgian comics. I started because I started in comics, like reading comics, because my local library had all of the collections of Hergé's Tintin, and I was obsessed with Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys as a little kid. And my mom went in there and was like, "He loves these Hardy Boys. What else you got?" I don't know why she sounds like a New York newspaper sales newsie or whatever, but she went in there and was like, he loves Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys. What else? What else you got like that? And they were like, "Oh, have you ever heard of Tintin?" And my mom had not, and obviously I had not either. But I quickly became obsessed, and yeah, Hergé's drawing style just immediately was very appealing to me, and I went from there to kind of mainstream superhero comics, because that was kind of all that was available at newsstands. And Johnny Quest. Johnny Quest was actually Real Adventures of Johnny Quest number 5, I think 5 or 6 is the first single issue comic I ever owned, and then Batman and X-Men and all that stuff. And then I got into superhero stuff, and then kind of went back into the indie space with stuff from Fantagraphics and Dark Horse and Image, and all of that kind of stuff. And now I read manga and I read everything now. When I lived in France for a while last year, and I sent literal tubs of like bande dessinée home. It was way too expensive. I should have just flown over with an extra suitcase, but I didn't. And so now I have all of these beautiful French comics, and they make me very happy.
Now, see, the question is, can you read them?
Actually, so there's 2 answers to that. One, my partner, Nicole, speaks a little bit of French, so she can kind of decipher what's happening if I have a question.
Okay.
And then the other part is, I don't know if you've ever used the Google Translate app, but it's amazing. You hold that phone over the text, and it auto-populates it with whatever language you select.
Really?
It's like living in Star Trek.
Because I haven't used it since it first came out, and you were lucky if it got the first 2 words of the sentence right.
Oh no, it's amazing. I mean, some of it, the conjugation might be a little wrong, or whatever, but you 100% can. Like, I read all of Alexis Nesme does a series of Mickey Mouse bande dessinée, collections. They're like 64-page, fully painted collections. One's called Mickey Mouse in Horrific Land, and one's called Mickey Mouse in, like, I think Treasure Island or Treasure Land or something. They're basically like the French version of Mickey Mouse is a detective. Not all of them, but this version. Right. He's a detective, and he runs a detective agency with Goofy and Donald. Although Goofy isn't called Goofy in the French version. He's got a different name, which I don't remember now. It's like Le Hound or something like that.
I wonder why.
I don't know. I think Goofy just doesn't translate.
Huh.
And so each book is them going to a different, like, abandoned skate park, abandoned theme park, abandoned water park, and solving a
I'll say I'm
mystery in
sensing a
those
theme here.
places. Yeah, there's 3 of them, I think. I have 2 of them, but I think there's 3. And I read all of that with the Google Translate app. This is a weird one. I read Daisuke Igarashi's latest book translated into French and then Google translated it on my phone. Like,
So you had it
it's
from Japanese into French into
French, and
English.
then I read the French on my phone. Yeah. I'm blanking on the name now. Is it called Forms? Forming? Evolution? Evolutions? It's the one about the little girls, 2 little girls who are a part of, like, a experiment where they're spliced together with animal parts. So there's, like, a girl with, like, a jaguar legs and, like,
I
an
think I know what
insect
you're
tail.
talking about, but I can't remember a
Yeah.
name for
I
it.
can't really think of the name either. But yeah, whatever Daisuke Igarashi's latest translated book in French is, because it had just come out there. Um, but I read a bunch of, like, Korean and French and Japanese comics that were all translated into French while I was there. Um, yeah. I also, like, this thing blew my mind. I went to Angoulême when I was there, which is a big, comics festival, and they have exhibitions of original art. And I mean, they're amazing. They're like full gallery shows. Like, there was a whole Junji Ito exhibition with like 400 pieces of his work.
Oh, wow.
Um, there was one of Ryuki Ikegami with, again, like 400 pieces of his work. Philippe Drouillet, the Attack on Titan guy. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But they had all these original art shows. And the thing that's so fucking crazy to me is when the festival puts on an original art show, they make a book. They make, like, a hardbound, like, 11 by 17, like,
Oh,
full book,
wow.
and it's all scans of the original artwork and a biography of the artist.
That's
Um,
awesome.
it's super cool. Like, I bought the which one did I buy? I bought the Drouillet one, the Ryuki Kagami one, and then the year before when I was there, uh, Wally Wood had an exhibition, and I bought the book for the Wally Wood exhibition as well. Um, yeah.
No,
That
that's
was a
super
very
awesome.
long and rambling answer to, "How did you get into comics?" And I'm just like,
No, I
"Yeah,
love that
Ryuki
kinda stuff
Kagami!"
because when it starts branching off, man, that's when the stories get good, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so was there, like, anything in particular, like, before going over to France and, like, discovering all that stuff, was there something, like, really, like, certain characters that really gripped you as a kid as a part of, like I'm stumbling over my words here right now. Was there any particular genre or characters that really, really gripped you as a kid? There we go.
I mean, as a kid, yeah, I mean, like I said, Tintin is the major one. I loved
Mhm.
Tintin so much, and Haddock, and I really hated some of the supporting characters though, but I loved Tintin and Haddock. Professor Calculus always drove me up the wall as a kid. I was like, he's so dumb. Why is everyone tolerating this guy? The humor did not land on me. I was just like,
Right.
he can't hear. What is this? This sucks. Um, and then also, like, I was really into the X-Men as a little kid. The first comic I tried to make was like an X-Men fan comic. Um,
Okay.
but I didn't really understand the characters. Like,
Right.
as a kid, I didn't get, like, oh, Nightcrawler is cool because he looks like a demon, but he's actually a sweetheart. Like that, the
Right.
dramatic irony in that, I didn't understand. I was just like, no, he looks like a demon, so he should be angry. And so I made a
Right.
comic about him, like, leading the X-Men and teleporting someone's head off, which I thought was just
Oh
like the
my.
coolest idea ever. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not a very Nightcrawler thing to do, I don't think.
No, no. Age of Apocalypse Nightcrawler, yes. Normal Nightcrawler, no.
Right, right.
In fact, I think he does that. Like, I think in Age of Apocalypse, he teleports Deadpool's head off. But I did not know that as a kid. I like, parallel thinking. I, like, created that idea as a kid, and then when I was older and was reading Age of Apocalypse, I was like, "This is my idea!"
Right, when it's like it's one of those things where there's no real original idea under the sun. Everything's kind of borrowing elements from
Totally.
something. So
Yeah, totally, totally. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So was actually creating your own comic, like, how did that decision come about? Was that like a lifelong dream of yours, or is that something you kind of just decided to do one day when you got older?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like there was almost no choice. Bill Sienkiewicz always says that he feels like he didn't choose comics, comics chose him. And I feel very similarly, where I would love to have had an interest in finance or accounting or something where there's like a way to make money, but no, it's just always been it from the word go. From the first opening of that Tintin comic, I was like, "Oh, this is what I will do. I will dedicate my life to this art form. God damn it."
And was the original goal to be a writer or an artist or both?
I think the original goal was to be an artist, because I think that was a little bit more conceivable to me. Like, I understood that people wrote comics, but that didn't feel like making comics as a kid. Like, the idea of drawing the grid and putting people in boxes is
Right. When
making
you're a
well,
kid, you hear
at that
writing
point.
comics, you probably equate it to the same thing as somebody writing a movie. They write it and then hand it off to someone else to make it.
Yeah, and also, like, as a little kid, like, what even does writing a movie mean? Like, you don't
Right.
really it's like it's easy to understand, like, what an actor does and, like, what a stuntman does and what the editor takes the film and cuts it up and puts it back together. But, like, as a kid, I don't think I understood what a writer like, that was just so alien, because I don't come from a creative place or anything. I'm from
Mhm.
Arizona originally, and it's not like there's a lot happening there. Um,
Right.
uh, but so I think the initial goal was the art thing, and then that just kind of evolved into telling my own stories and writing my own comics, and then that evolved into writing for other people, and then that evolved into this kind of hybrid thing where I write sometimes for my creative partner Nicole Gu, who I've made many graphic novels with, and sometimes I write like freelance work for hire stuff like Star Trek or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then sometimes I write for myself, and then I draw the stuff that I want to draw, and then I make a story out of it.
So you definitely like lean more heavily on the writer side of it nowadays, even though originally the goal was to be the artist.
Yeah, I mean, it just takes so much time. Like, it's just such a laborious task that, writing and then the cathedral explodes takes as long as it does to say it, where drawing
Right.
an exploding cathedral could take you a week, depending on how you do it.
Yeah, how detailed you want to get with it for sure.
Yeah.
So let's get into what you actually came here to talk about originally, and that is your series Haloween Boy, which is a new series for me because I've only recently discovered it. But this is awesome. I got volume one from you at a Cartoon Crossroads, and I've read it probably 3 times now.
Oh, wow. That's
So
impressive.
I really liked it.
Cool. Thank
So
you.
to give everybody kind of a synopsis of what this book is, who Halloween Boy is, and kind of like the inspiration behind the book.
Yeah, Halloween Boy is a kind of revisionist action adventure comic filtered through kind of like an art house lens. So it follows a character named Halloween Boy, who's the last descendant from a long line of adventurers who lives on a floating skull-shaped island in low orbit. And he's kind of the patron saint of the impossible. So whenever somebody has a problem that's unsolvable, they show up on his doorstep and they're like, "Help us out, Halloween Boy." And then he goes on this kind of quest that no one else could do. So if you've got a family member trapped in an alternate dimension, or if there's a ancient tomb locked in the center of the earth, or a civil war between alien species, he will get involved and do his best to help solve the unsolvable problem. If there's any Star Trek fans out there, he's kind of the living manifestation of the Kobayashi Maru, the no-win scenario. That's his bread and butter. And the book is kind of it's about him. Each issue, there's 4 issues currently. The fifth one, depending on when this video goes up, will either be out or be out in the next couple weeks. It's I think I'm gonna put it out around Halloween time. So there's 4 issues currently. Those are the first and second covers right there. Um, the structure of the book is that they're all oversized. They're all extra length, sometimes triple length. Issues 4 and 5 are both triple length. I think they're like 70 pages each.
Okay.
Um, and the first chunk of the issues are all standalone adventures about Halloween Boy and his newly minted sidekick, Carrion, who's a mutant alien from another world who's been experimented on and has the ability to control electrical impulses and muscle, so she can kind of like control small animals and rodents and insects and stuff. It's them going on these kind of little like episodic adventures of the week where they kind of get involved in these unwinnable scenarios and then hopefully at the end of it triumph. And as they're doing that, there's kind of this running mystery throughout the background of the book about Halloween Boy's family, the lineage that he comes from, and maybe some secrets that he and his family would rather have kept quiet. And maybe there's a more sinister aspect to the legacy that he thinks he's upholding in a positive light currently.
Yeah, because the book, the first issue, which is the only one I currently have, which is unfortunate because now I want the rest of them. It kind of, it does leave off on a pretty good little cliffhanger there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Because it definitely makes me want to get issue 2. Like, because now I need to know what's going on with all these, I guess, alternate versions of himself, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you don't quite know what they are. But you know, as the series goes on, that unfolds, and you learn about who those characters are and what their relationship to him is, and how it all knits together over the course of the series. I'm trying to not spoil anything because with small press books like this, it's a weird, delicate balance of, you know, you're constantly trying to just tell just enough of the book so somebody who might want to pick it up, and also not ruin the reading experience because the likelihood of, you know, coming into it having previously been exposed to it is pretty low.
Mhm.
But yeah, like I said, there's 4, probably when this goes up, around 5 issues of Halloween Boy.
Yeah, this interview will go up on October 20th.
Okay, yeah, it'll probably be 5 at that point. And
Okay,
I
well,
think the toy is also gonna be up. I think the toy goes up October 16th.
oh, there's a toy. Is it gonna be like an action figure? Is it a plushie
Yeah,
or?
yeah, it's a full so, there's a, I wonder if I can drop it into the chat. I wonder if that can happen. There is a toy line called Operation Monster Force put together by Fresh Monkey Fiction, which is a toy company that I'm a big, and they are producing a Halloween Boy action figure, fully posable. I think 30 points of articulation, manufactured. And now I don't know where the image of the toy is. I thought I had it on my desktop, but I don't. But he looks amazing. If you check out my Instagram, you'll see him. He's there. Halloween Boy is going to be in the second wave of the toy line, which goes up for pre-order on Big Bad Toy Store October 16th, I believe is the day that he goes up.
Nice. Okay, that's a great website. If anybody out there is toy collectors, Big Bad Toy Store is a great website.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm just thrilled that, you know, they and Fresh Monkey, Bill over at Fresh Monkey has been a big advocate for Halloween Boy. He likes the book. He's been very supportive, and I'm hoping that this toy could potentially, you know, lead a bunch of people back to the comics. Um, because one of the things that I think about when I'm drawing the book is kind of um, the meta joke to me is that like Halloween Boy is kind of in the lineage of Buckaroo Banzai, where it's like a sequel to a thing that doesn't exist. So like to me, Halloween Boy,
Yeah,
the
that's kind of what it
franchise,
felt like in issue 1. It felt like I was reading something that I should have like had more information on going into it at
yeah,
first, but by the end of it, I didn't care.
yeah,
Like,
totally. Like to me, the joke is that like Halloween Boy, the franchise has existed for a long time, and that this book is kind of almost the like extension of that, where he exists in a world fully formed with legacy characters and crossover events and all of these things that have happened before we meet him in issue 1. um, and the idea that that would extend out into a toy is very fun to me, and also the idea that, you know, the way I draw, I've been told, is very toyetic, or, you know, they people could see the characters as toys.
100%, I'd have to agree with that. Like the art style in this gave like I was like, this could be made into a play set so easily. Like, I was
I
sitting here
mean, I would,
thinking, like, these would make awesome toys when I was kids.
yeah, like that would be the dream, and the fact that we are gonna get a Halloween Boy toy is nuts to me. Especially since it's, I'm self-publishing it right now. Like I've been talking to a couple publishers, but right now everything is just me, and there's a wall of boxes right there, like it's currently just me. And so I feel very excited and emotionally buoyed by the response to the character and the book, and also I'm just excited to have a physical object of a character I created and care about a lot.
Oh, yeah, I mean, who doesn't wanna have something that they made turned into a toy?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
something that
it's
started as literally just an image in your brain, and now it's something you can, like, hold and, like, people can collect and actually kids could play with, and
when I first started drawing the book, I bought a bunch of toys based off of creator-owned comics, almost as kind of, like a totemic thing of, like, an aspirational like, this is my version of a vision board, you know what I mean? Is
Right.
like I bought this guy here, this martial law this English martial
Oh,
law
that's so
figure.
cool.
I'm a huge fan of Pat Mills, I'm a huge fan of the dearly departed, um, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his fucking name, the artist of, uh Pa oh my god, the artist of martial law and also Nemesis the Warlock and also the, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. His name is Kevin O'Neill, and he passed away tragically last year, very sad. And, stuff like this, and I also bought like the Martha Washington figure, which is sitting right there, and like a weird Brazilian one-off Diabolique toy because I'm a big fan of Danger Diabolic, the movie, which you can see right there.
Yeah.
Um, and like to me, that was like not that I ever even really thought it would manifest in a figure, but like having that like okay, we're going to set out to make a thing, and the thing is going to have a similar feeling to those early Turtles comics in that it's to me they're so great because they're unbridled creativity. It's or
Mhm.
the other key influence to me is Matt Fraction, Gabriel Ba, and Fabio Moon's Casanova. That book to me is such a pure example of I've done the thing. I've pitched 100 times. Everyone has said no. No one believes in me. I've got this opportunity in front of me. I'm going to seize it and wrestle it to the ground and do an uncompromising work that is deeply personal. And if it fails, at least I've failed doing my thing as opposed to
Mhm.
failing trying to make a commercial hit?
100%.
And so to me, that's what like that was my initial goal with Halloween Boy is to make something that felt personal and yet a little bit more accessible than my last book, and also had a kind of an idea on idea on idea on idea kind of aesthetic.
Yeah, because the way you set it up just with the first issue alone, you could literally do anything with this character you wanted.
hmm Yeah, I mean, this first arc has a very definitive stopping place. But if I do more, I think it's probably going to go in an area that most people probably wouldn't expect, because the first arc, these first 5 issues, is very. It's a very it's like how I pitched it. It's a revisionist action adventure comic. It takes all of the tropes of the Phantom and the Shadow and Doc Savage and the Spider and the Green Hornet
I'll say it
and
gave me very strong Phantom vibes when I first started reading it.
totally. And I mean, I'm straightforward about it. It is 100% inspired by the Phantom. Um, I love the Phantom, and in fact,
It's a
the
great
book.
character.
Yeah, and there's a reason why we're still talking about him 100 years later. Um, the first character to wear spandex, the first character to have pupilless eyes, the first character to be serialized in a newspaper strip wearing a domino mask. Like those are all big, you know, thresholds as far as the genre of comics goes.
Mhm.
And just like everything else in the genre, there's some shady stuff behind the scenes. And did Lee Falk draw those early comics, or did he get a ghost artist and then screw him out of that? Who knows? But
That's the perks of happening so long ago. Those things will never get known now. So
yeah, I mean, it's fascinating to me, which of those stories are remembered and which aren't. Like I can't tell you how happy it makes me that every time there's a Batman project now, Bill Finger's name is on it. Like it's the way it should be, and it's the way it always should have been. And it's a tragedy that it took as long as it did. But Mark Nobleman and Athena Finger and everybody involved in that fight to get him credit, I just have the utmost amount of respect for, and I'm so happy that that has happened. And I look forward to a day where there is a cultural reckoning around Jack Kirby and around what he contributed to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And despite him having credit on a lot of these movies, I don't feel that he's properly recognized in that.
I think that's a pretty common opinion these days, is that he's just not given the credit that he's due at all.
Yeah, Jeremy, I think it's common in like-minded circles like you and I, but I think that conversation is such a bigger conversation now where, Stan, I think most people don't know that Stan won a lawsuit, and that's why he had cameos in all those movies. I think they think it's like he created the characters. That's why he's got these cameos. And it's like, well, not
Yes and
really.
no.
Yeah, I mean, yes, he was there. He was there, sure. He did a lot of great work, and he was very important to that process, but it's not the simple cut and dry, like, pat him on the back guy.
Right. Well, and especially back then, that happened so much with so many people in the industry. So it was kind of common practice back then.
Yeah, which is a shame. It shouldn't.
It really is.
Yeah. But I think that there's I've been straightforward the whole time of like these ideas for Haloween Boy started because I was talking to King Features about getting the rights to the Phantom. It's like it's not particularly subtle.
Right.
It's like, it's like
but there's nothing wrong with that either. So I mean, like, as long as you like go into it knowing exactly what it is, which it presents itself as exactly what it is, and it's fun.
Well, especially because like you have so many of these opportunities that don't go anywhere, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like I can't even tell you the amount of times I've pitched on stuff and it just doesn't go because it just doesn't go. And some of my favorite comics are exactly this thing where it's an idea that was pitched for something else and then recycled. Casanova being a perfect example. That was originally pitched as a Dominic Fortune Jr. pitch to Marvel that they rejected. And you can see it once you know that, you're like, oh, Cass is Dominic Fortune Jr., Fabula Berserko is MODOK. Like, oh, okay, that character is Nick Fury, that character is Dum Dum Dugan. Like, oh, all right, okay. And that book, I don't think anyone would say rests on the carcass of that rejected pitch. That's a framework, and it takes off in its own direction. And I hope that Halloween Boy does the same, where, we were talking with them for a while. I wrote a God document of what I would do with the Phantom. And then ultimately everyone decided it wasn't right for that place and time, and no harm, no foul, all good. And then I had finished my previous book, Mary Tyler Moorhawk, that Top Shelf is going to be publishing in February. And I was like, I have like a year before this book comes out. What am I going to do with this year? So I was going through a bunch of story ideas, found that file, and was like, oh yeah, that's right. We were talking about the Phantom. Weird. And then once I found that little earworm of a narrative, I just couldn't get away from the idea of a legacy character that's so far down the legacy pipeline, they've lost the meaning of what they were originally supposed to do. And so they've reforged the idea or the standard that they're attempting to uphold. And maybe it's very different than the original intention. And I thought that was a really interesting and potentially dramatic set piece to hang a narrative around.
No, 100%. So what is next for Haloween Boy? You said the first arc is getting ready to wrap up. So is there going to be a second one? Because like I said, with the way you've made this character, you could literally do anything you wanted with him.
Yeah, I don't know. So I'm tinkering with a thing. I've got some ideas. I don't know yet. I mean, drawing that 5 issues, especially with issues 4 and 5 each being like 60, 70 pages each. It took me a good little time there. It took me a good little
Right.
while. So I think for the immediate future is to just try and get the word out more about Halloween Boy and the world and promote the toy. And who knows, maybe do more toys. I could see a Frankennoid toy. I think that'd be really fun.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
You can get a whole little army of them.
I've custom made a bunch. I don't know if you can see them. Hold on. I've custom made a bunch of toys for them. Hold on. Before I had the deal at Fresh Monkey, I was just looking into making them myself. And so I designed and hired a sculptor
Oh,
and
wow.
made there's a
That's
Frankennoid figure.
awesome.
And then this was the first go at a Halloween Boy. Uh, but I also started the process so far back that his ears are just like completely different than they are in the finished book. Um,
That's awesome, though. That's the prototypes, man.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, the like custom made dust covered prototypes.
Right. Like, well,
Yeah.
one day when he blows up big, those will be the things that people want in the glass case on their shelf,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh yeah, the original action figures are cool, but I want those concept pieces.
Yeah,
Like,
totally. Yeah. This is my version of the like Phil Tippett, maquettes for like Bib Fortuna and Boba Fett when he just had all white armor and shit. Yeah.
right. Excuse me. So is there any other projects you're working on for any other publishers right now, or is your main focus strictly Halloween Boy at the moment?
Well, like I said, Mary Tyler Moorhawk, which exists sort of in the same universe with
Now that's the other photo you sent me, right?
yeah, that
Let's
book
see. Here it is.
yeah, that book comes out in February 14th from Top Shelf Comics, and it's kind of a mixture of um, what if House of Leaves, Mark C. Danielewski's, formalist ergogogic novel House of Leaves was mashed up with Johnny Quest. So it's split in half. Half the book
Okay.
is comics, where you're following the titular Mary Tyler Moorhawk and her family of globetrotting adventurers as they're attempting to kind of stop this near apocalyptic event from happening. And then the other half of the book is prose, where you're reading letters and magazine articles and newspaper clippings from 100 years in the future, where there is a journalist who is attempting to track down what happened to the creator of the TV show that was eventually adapted from those comics. And
Oh, wow.
as the book goes, the comics storyline and the like prose storyline kind of do this, and they kind of interact with each other in different ways. And
That's fascinating.
It took probably about 5 years to make.
I
It's a
don't doubt it. That sounds complex just to try and write, let alone trying to draw and get everything structured so it's all in cohesive sense.
and there's like, I think there's probably about 80 original photographs that my friend and brilliant photographer David Catalano took. The whole book is designed by Mike Lopez, who's a designer who did all of Halloween Boy stuff, and he's an amazing designer, and some of his photos are in the book. And then I wrote all of the prose and built out everything that had to go with it, of like, oh, this one will be a magazine and that one will be a newspaper clip or whatever.
Right.
And also drew all the comics. So it was a stupid amount of work. I don't recommend doing it. And I hope
But it
at the
sounds
end.
like it's gonna be really, really cool though. Like that sounds awesome. That sounds really different. You don't see different very often in comics anymore.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean that's the goal. I kind of had this idea of just wouldn't it be cool if, and then didn't
Right.
really think about how much work I would have to do and how hard it would get be to get a publisher to say yes. And ultimately, thankfully, Chris Staros at Top Shelf has just been amazing, as well as Lee, the other editor there. They've both just been so supportive and encouraging and excited about the fact that the book isn't like anything else. And that's kind of what I think it needs to be talked about as, because it's this weird thing of like, it's really academic and like cerebral on one hand, and then it's also fucking dumb on the other. So there's this, you know what I mean? Like it's like you got to find the right balance of the kind of academic weird, almost kind of like grad school approach to it. I think will connect to a certain group of people, and then to another group of people it's like, yeah, but can't I just read the comic about like the Nancy Drew girl like trying to stop the apocalypse? And frankly, that's fine. Like if you don't want to read the other stuff and you just want to read the comic, you can do that. But I think it's a lot better when you have both of those things
Oh,
kind
yeah,
of
because it
intermeshed.
builds like most nerds, I can't speak for everybody anyway, but I know most nerds I talk to are lore addicts.
Oh,
Like
100%.
they want the backstory, they want the extra stuff surrounding what's going on. So that is like you started describing that, and my eyes got bigger. I'm sure. I'm like, that sounds so cool.
Yeah, because the book, like, it takes place, the prose sections, 100 years in the future, they take place in this kind of like weird dystopian future where all physical media has been outlawed. So the process of tracking down these comics and the process of tracking down these episodes of the TV show that existed, it's very difficult. So all of the like collecting fan subcultures go underground, and so the world building parts of it are like this journalist going to these ostensibly like basement swap meets and like interviewing people, talking to them. Have you ever seen the fabled 10th episode of Mary Tyler Moore? Because there's only 9 episodes that were shot before the show was canceled. And there's only like
Ah.
9 issues of the show or issues of the book. And there's all these weird, like, he ends up tracking down a bunch of people that worked on the TV show and interviewing them. And a lot of them have like differing opinions on who the person was that created things and what happened to that person and where everything went. I'm just so thrilled that Top Shelf has taken a chance on my book, because it was an uphill battle to find a publisher that really got it. Yeah.
Well, I think he's not going to be disappointed once that hits shelves because the people who are looking for something like that are going to eat that up like candy.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so.
Well, because there's not enough stuff out there, at least in my opinion, that makes you think anymore.
Sure.
There's not enough
Yeah.
stuff that actually engages your brain anymore. It's all like just quick 30-second junk content. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah, I mean, that was another thing is, I made the graphic novel Everyone is Tulip with Nicole Gu for Dark Horse a couple years ago, and it got nominated for the Eisner, which I was so thrilled by. I just, I
It was
couldn't,
a
I
great
still,
book.
thank you. Thank you. It just, is surreal to me that we even got nominated. It's just bizarre. And one of the things that I had not anticipated about that experience was, we spent probably 3-4 years working on that book, and people would come up to us at shows and be like, "Oh man, I love Tulip. I read it in 10 minutes. I read it in 15 minutes. I read it in 16." Like, what? We spent 3 years and you read it in 15 minutes? And I kind of had to reframe how I was thinking about it, because I was like, if they've read it in 15 minutes, that means that the book was constructed in a way that it was easy to read, which is what you as a creator want. And it was easily digestible and it was engaging. And so all three of those things dovetailed into someone reading it really
Yeah,
quickly.
because if I'm reading something in 15 minutes, that means I'm not putting it down. I'm not getting up to go to the bathroom. I'm
Yeah.
not, I'm sitting there and finishing what I'm reading.
Yeah. So that still doesn't always feel good, but I had to, that was this, make lemonade out of lemons or whatever. And so for the next book, I was like, when I draw my next book, I'm going to make something that you just can't do that with.
Mhm.
And then I spent 4 years writing fake newspaper articles about bin diving 100 years in the future, you know?
But that's awesome.
Yeah.
At least I
Thank you.
think it's awesome. So
I think it's really cool too. Like I feel like there's a section of this, because there's kind of two halves to being a creative person where there's the like making of the thing, and then there's the going out and trying to promote the thing and sell the thing. And
Mhm.
I don't think I'm bad at promoting. I think I'm pretty good at it, but
You
uh
got me to come to your booth.
thank you. That's true. That's true. That's true. But I think specifically it's just there's a component of it that's like my goal for this is to be the biggest fan of the thing that I've made, because that's not always the case. Sometimes things don't line up the way you want them to. You there's conflicts behind the scenes or whatever it is. Like
Mhm.
it doesn't always come out right. But to frame it for yourself in a way that's like, even if it didn't come out right, these are the best aspects of the work, because the world is always going to tell you what doesn't work. The world is always going to be like the thing you did doesn't matter. So trying to find the positive aspect in whatever it is that you're doing, I think is as an artist, is really important. And that's not to be delusional or like, say that you have no flaws, but just this game is so fucking hard and this racket sucks so much that
Mhm.
like you have to reframe that stuff in your mind, or else there's just no point to it. Um, and I feel very satisfied creatively with where both Mary Tyler Moorhawk and Halloween Boy went, and I am very hopeful and optimistic that they will hopefully connect with people, whether that be a large audience or a small audience. I'm indifferent to that. That's not my um, that's not my realm. I can't control that. All I can control is I made the best thing that I could possibly make, and I gave it my all, and I don't think anybody's gonna say that I didn't swing for the fucking fences.
Right. No, I mean, just the idea alone is off the wall. So, I mean, the fact that you actually put in the 4 or 5 years of work and made something like that
Dude,
is
it was a stupid
incredible.
amount of work. It's a stupid amount of work. I would never do that again until I have the next idea where I'm like, "What if?"
Right, or until, the publisher's like, "Hey, can you do a sequel?"
Yeah, totally. Totally. Yeah, totally, totally, totally. Yeah.
So before I let you go and enjoy the rest of your evening, let people know where they can find you, where they can find all your books, and I'm gonna have to have you back on when that drops in February because that
Totally, man.
sounds fascinating.
Yeah, dude, for sure. Yeah, so you can find me on all the socials at xdavebakerx, or my website, heydavebaker.com. You can buy all 4, possibly 5, depending on when it comes out. Um, uh, Issues of Halloween Boy there, as well as all my other graphic novels, Everyone is Tulip, Forest Hills Bootleg Society, Night Hunters, Star Trek Voyager 7's Reckoning, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Endless Summer, and a bunch of other stuff that I'm now blanking on, but I'm sure is also there. Yeah, man, thank you for having me on the show. This was super fun. Um, and if anybody wants to hear more of my ramblings, I also have a podcast called Deep Cuts. It's a deep dive explainer podcast about obscure topics.
Ah,
Um,
cool.
yeah, so
See, I'll
thank
have
you
to
very
check
much.
that out because I didn't know that was a thing, or else I would have put a link in here for it somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. It's a labor of love, and we get a little extra. We did a whole episode about the history of Napster and the collapse of the music industry, but we did it as a musical with 11 original songs that me and my co-host Andrew Price sang. We did an episode about the making of Buckaroo Banzai, where we had a narrative sequence at the end of the episode written by Earl Mac Rausch, screenwriter of the film, and Rick Richter, the director of the film. And we had 2 of the actors from the film appear in the narrative sequence. So we did a kind of little, adventure that Mac wrote, where it's us as fictional characters in the Buckaroo Banzai world interacting with Buckaroo Banzai characters, and it's like a little radio play. Um, yeah, we do lots of weird topics. Yeah,
That sounds great, though. You're gonna have to send me some links for sure.
yeah, I will. Yeah, for sure.
So, real quick, everybody, I want to remind you that every other Friday is going to be Fandoms, our other main show here on the Nerd Initiative Network. Next episode of the Comic Press, the show you're watching right now, is going to be on, let's see here, it's coming, this episode is on the October 20th, so the next episode will be November 3rd if you're watching this now. And we've got also Turn a Page, our newest comic book show, which is focused more on the mainstream side of things. And then we've got the pro wrestling show, Wrestling at Night Live. Make sure you check that out every Wednesday night. New comic book day reviews every single Wednesday on nerdinitiative.com/comic-books. I don't think there's anything else that I can possibly plug at this point. So everybody, please be safe, be kind, and take it easy.
Come on, come on.